Portugal has a lot of good engineering schools all over the country, and the competition is quite low compared with other countries in Europe.
Portugal has a lot of very good universities. We have a lot of good people aiming for new technologies, new challenges, new products, and the breakthrough of industry.
We came here in Portugal because of the dynamic of the market. As I mentioned, we have hired 800 engineers in less than 3 years. It really shows how dynamic is the market, how entrepreneurial is the environment, and that was really important to build our IT center.
When we recruited lately all these engineers, we were capable of setting up a team of 15 nationalities, all recruited in Portugal. And obviously, the majority of them were Portuguese, but there were a lot of foreigners already living in Portugal due to the amazing quality of life that you have here in the country.
The other reason why we came here, it was because of the international mindset. We are covering operation on 38 countries. And it was important to have people who do have that international mindset, but also who do speak English and other foreign language. And we found that here in Portugal.
The Portuguese people are not only friendly, but they're great linguists. And that, in today's world, is very important, the ability to be able to communicate directly with visitors that are coming from all corners of the planet to discover the beautiful and safe country of Portugal.
We have the people, the know-how, and the willingness to learn.
There's a massive pool of talent for people that on the position that we want to fill. So this makes it basically a no-brainer of investing in Portugal at this moment. So if you're considering, for us the experience was great. So think about it. It might be a very good opportunity.
Welcomes you to the Portugal-Belgium seminar, Business and Investment Opportunities. My name is Mónica Silvares. I'm an editor at Echo newspaper, and I will moderate today's conference. Portugal is open for business. In a moment, we are starting to put the COVID-19 pandemic behind us. The country wants to send a strong signal and show foreign investors it can be a perfect location in Europe, a bridge to African markets, but also to Latin America and North America. Belgian investors discovered Portugal for a long time. Their investments in Portugal grew 174% between 2015 and 2019. There are dozens of Belgian companies in the country in a wide range of sectors, but there is room for more, and the Recovery and Resilience Plan can also be an opportunity not to be missed. In the next 2 hours, we will discuss the opportunities ahead. To kick off today's work, we have the Portuguese Minister for Foreign Affairs, Augusto Santos Silva. He has recorded a video message for us, so let's watch it.
Participants, d'abord quelques mots en français pour souhaiter à tous la bienvenue. It is a pleasure to address this audience in the opening of the Portugal-Belgium seminar, Business and Investment Opportunities, organized by the AICEP Portugal Global. The seminar will discuss the attractiveness of the Portuguese economy, its business and investment ecosystem, and its competitive advantage. The seminar will showcase successful examples of Belgian companies with investments in Portugal, namely in pharmaceutical sector, chemical, aluminium, mining, agri-food, insurance, illumination, and water. The history of these companies in our market and the experiences and challenges that they faced will be, of course, one of the main topics of this seminar. By presenting several sectors of opportunity to invest in Portugal and current business trends, the seminar aims to encourage Belgium and foreign companies to further invest and to do business in Portugal, exploring current and future opportunities and contributing to the internationalization of the Portuguese economy. And from the Portuguese side, I would like to emphasize what I think are our four major assets which you can benefit from. The first is this very simple. Portugal values for its own internal market, but also for the fact that we are a gateway between Europe, Africa, and Latin America. The second asset is the quality of our human resources, of our skilled talent pool. Namely, we have now a large number of qualified graduates, great financial, social, and political stability and low risk, and of course, this provides a business environment that I think is very much favorable. Among its competitive advantages, Portugal is exceeding EU goals for sustainability, mainly because of the importance of renewable energy in our energy mix. And I think this is the third major asset of the Portuguese economy. And finally, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that Portugal is currently considered the fourth country in the world in terms of security and peace, according to the Global Peace Index. Belgian direct investment in Portugal grew 174% between 2015 and 2019, and registered an investment stock in March 2021 of 1,945 million euros. But there is room for additional growth, since the Portuguese economy's outlook is now promising. Portugal has always been open for business, as we say, and has continued to attract new foreign investment projects. Today, we have more than 50 Belgian companies operating in Portugal in several sectors of activity, as I have already mentioned. And the foreign investment stock from Belgium in Portugal is estimated in 1.9 billion euros last March. And this investment, Belgium in Portugal, represents 1.2% of the total foreign direct investment stock in Portugal. Between 2016 and 2020, the Belgian direct investment flows to Portugal grew by 158%, despite a negative variation in 2020 due to the pandemic. Belgian direct investment values, both stock and flows, are already recovering during the first quarter of this year. Business investment has already made up for a large part of its loss in 2020 and will continue to support growth as its underlying fundamentals remain favorable. Even though all the projections are still surrounded by risks and uncertainties due to the pandemic, the prospect of a gradual return to normal, coupled with strong demands in both the manufacturing and construction industries, has already pushed up consumer and producer confidence far above their pre-pandemic levels in May. In fact, many industries are faced with longer delivery times as supply cannot keep up with rapidly rising demand. So we have a lot of work to do. And this seminar is a great opportunity to exchange best practice, to share our views, and to explore current and future opportunities for all of us in business. Thank you very much.
So we will now have the welcome remarks from Huizrin, the ambassador of Portugal to Belgium. The floor is yours. We're trying to, please, go ahead.
I'd like to start by saying a few. One of the largest exclusive economic zones in the world. These 3 points, which seem unrelated at first, I think are important to give you a sense of scale. Sometimes we think of ourselves as small countries, but again, countries have an enormous scope that is sometimes not immediately visible. This has to be known. And I think it is important to, when we project the image of Portugal, to let people know that we are way larger in every sense than sometimes the typical image d'Épinal of the beaches and the sailors and some other traditional aspects. This is perhaps the first point that I would like to point out. The second point, and again, because I don't want to go into technicalities because other participants will give more detailed information, is that, again, not going to the past, but the present, the bilateral relationship between the two countries is exceptionally intense and like-minded. And this is complementary to the business environment that exists in Portugal that is very conducive to investment. Only last week, Prime Minister Alexander De Croo was here at the Embassy of Portugal, participating in a meeting with European Union heads of mission. Now, it is true that this has taken place in the context of the Portuguese presidency, but still, it testifies to the fact that the bilateral relationship is exceptionally structured and strong. It's not something that we always say that bilateral relationships are excellent, but these are indeed robust and active between Portugal and Belgium. The third point that I'd like to emphasize is that you can count on the fact that here at the embassy, we are in a very strong networking between the embassy proper, the AICEP, economic investment area, and the tourism area in promoting Portugal and going hand in hand in supporting the economic and investment relationship between Belgium and Portugal. It's a constant effort where we leverage one another in this task. So there is a framework that is always supportive of your efforts, just as I'm sure our counterparts, and I know Ambassador Geneviève Renault, my friend in Lisbon, knows well. She's doing the same in Lisbon. And so you can count not only on the business environment in both countries, but on the diplomatic support of both countries to promote this investment. And this, I think, is the third point that I would like to emphasize. I will leave to other speakers going into the finer grain of the economic and investment relationship and all the opportunities that our country needs to offer. But I think the take-home message is that we are very like-minded countries. We understand each other very well. Experience shows that we can and we have been working very well at all levels. And so this is a very good not starting point, because fortunately the relationship exists for a long time already, but this is a good set of conditions to make sure that we can still further develop our relationship. So I urge you to follow this seminar attentively, because I believe this will give you a lot of and good reasons to invest in Portugal and promote the bilateral economic relationship. Thank you very much.
Highlighting the robust relations between the two countries and the fact that we are not a country only of workforce, but also a country of leaders. In the next 30 minutes, Luís Castro Henriques and Miguel Farinha will show a picture of the business and investment ecosystem in Portugal. Luís Castro Henriques is the chairman and CEO of AICEP Portugal Global. The floor is yours.
I hope you can hear me. So first of all, thank you very much, Monica. Dear Ambassador, thank you for being here with us. Dear Miguel, thanks for partnering up with me and with the good news that you bring. I'll focus on the setting. I hope you'll bring the results. And thank you to all the speakers, dear Professor, dear General Secretary, and my dear Manel, and obviously dear Ambassador over in Brussels, who's following up on this and whose kind words I thank him for. So, very, very quickly, I'll give you a brief overview of why Portugal makes, in general, sense or structurally sense to invest in. Secondly, I'll give you a notion on why, more specifically, we're highly competitive on certain aspects that were already referred, but I'll try to give some further data on this. Thirdly, I'll give you some track record, so basically hoping that if by that time investors are not convinced, at least they will be convinced by the results of their peers and the decisions of their peers. And finally, we'll tell you and explain how ultimately you can have with AICEP a one-stop shop that will help you through all the process. So, first of all, I think that the first thing that people need to recognize, I don't know if they can see my presentation.
Could you please put the presentation on, please? Okay. It's running for the audience.
Okay, very good, but I just need to know what's... very good, here it is. So the first thing, obviously, I don't need to explain to Belgian investors that we are a European Union member or a Eurozone founding partner. However, I do think it's important to understand that Portugal is obviously the closest country in Europe to the American continent, especially to the US and Canada. But the other thing is that in Portugal, you also have a special and a specific access to almost 300 million consumers that speak Portuguese around the world, which are countries with whom we have special ties. So basically, not only we have a European perspective, but also special access to a vast, but above all, growing extremely fast market around the world, in South America and in Africa. The second aspect, and I think this was mentioned before, but I think it's important to understand, Portugal really is perceived by investors and by all the rankings across the board as a low-risk location. What does that mean? Well, that means that in terms of safety, we considered the fourth safest or most peaceful country in the world. In terms of overall political stability and absence of violence, we rank number 7 in the world. In terms of operational risk, from several perspectives, governance, socioeconomic vulnerability, food security, we are considered as an extremely or very, very low risk country. And on top of that, we have resilient infrastructure and so a strong performance in terms of logistics. So this gives you a notion of, a country that can take you further, that can allow you also to explore higher growing or countries that are growing faster, especially in terms of demographics, extremely stable, but also extremely sustainable. So as you can see, we are ranked usually either in the top 10 or worst case scenario in the top 20 as one of the most sustainable countries that has policies that have obviously impacted this for several decades now, but also a strong outlook in terms of its sustainability, whether it is in energy production or other dimensions of the climate changing performing indexes. Also, it is important to understand the competitiveness, the current competitiveness of our exports. People usually associate Portugal to a country of sun, wine, and olive oil, which is true. We have great sun, we have fantastic wine, and exceptional olive oil. It's all true. However, if you see, our biggest exports are motor vehicles and other transport equipment, machinery, obviously travel, other business services, agriculture. So we have a diversified portfolio of exports, but also with a higher technological profile that most people usually associate. And on top of that, that sells to some of the most competitive countries in Europe, among others, obviously, Belgium. Belgium is within the top 10, but we do believe that we can certainly export more products. However, the point here is it is important to understand that our portfolio of exports really shows our overall competitiveness. And in terms of investment, as I told you, I would conclude by showing you that if you look at rankings across the board, and you can specifically today focus on the Ernst & Young ranking, and Miguel Farinha will speak on that specifically, but you'll see that Portugal is considered one of the best locations nowadays, well, definitely in Europe, but I would say overall also in the world, to invest in. We're open, we have a strong FDI confidence index. We are considered a great destination, whether it is due to its stability, but also due to its competitiveness and differentiating factors, which I'll refer to in a minute. So we really rank well in terms of competitiveness for investment. So having said this, I think it's important to see, well, are the results there? And the answer is yes. This is just an extremely small sample of the companies that have settled operations here in the past, I'd say, 18 to 24 months. This is just a track record, especially focused, this slide, in new technology-based operations. I would obviously point out Schreder Hyperion, which is a Belgian company that has done a significant and is doing a significant investment over here in Portugal. But look at the other companies, whether they come from the United States, from Germany, from France, from Canada, or even from Brazil, all have established in the past 18 months new or expanded their technology-based operations over here in Portugal. And I think so that strong confirmation of our talent and our capability to attract highly demanding projects in terms of technology. But that's not the only angle. Look at in terms of industrial investment. For instance, you have the Belgian case of Coriolis that has invested recently in Portugal, but you have companies from the United States, from Germany, from France, from the UK, or even Japan, that have systematically invested or expanded their industrial operations over here in Portugal in the past few months. And this has been going on for the past 5 years. So I think it shows you well the setting. It shows that there are also other opportunities in terms of mergers and acquisitions. But above all, this track record, which is just a small sample of the large universe of contracts and projects that AICEP has brought to Portugal, basically shows you that great customers, highly demanding customers that can choose any country in the world to launch their operations have chosen Portugal. Now, specifically in terms of Belgium investment, and I think the slide here really is showing the companies. Well, so unfortunately, I'm sorry, the slide is not projecting adequately. But basically, I'll give you an idea of the companies that have been investing and have been raising their stakes here in Portugal. You have AGS, you have obviously Schroeder that I have already mentioned, Skyline Communications, Solvay, which you certainly know well, and especially its business services domain, VGP, Crest, Mazzulli, Coriolis, Belurte, among many, many, many others. So this shows you that not only we have strong investors from around the world, but even your peers from Belgium have invested in Portugal, and from what they tell us, but above all from what I see from their reinvestment and investment expansion, they keep on investing in Portugal, which means that we are competitive and obviously bring further opportunities to their business. Now, why is that? And very, very quickly, the main differentiating factor of Portugal is talent. And I'm pretty sure the Belgian, you know, my fellow Belgian friends will understand this. And I say this actually with, you know, I can say that with certain certainty because I actually grew up in Belgium, so I know what I'm talking about because I grew up from more than 10 years in Brussels. And what you can find in Portugal really is differentiating factors regarding talent in terms of language skills, which I know that the Belgians also highly value, but in terms of overall education, technical education, you'll see that our talent is highly qualified, very, very well prepared as Belgian talent, German talent, French talent, Dutch or even British talent. We have a higher and higher proportion of graduates in science coming into market. As you see, all of these figures are growing in Portugal. We even have further foreign students moving into Portugal and coming into Portugal to study. So let me give you five data points that I think they're important. First, Portugal is the country with the third highest rate of engineering graduates in Europe. Secondly, we have 4 Portuguese universities in the Financial Times ranking, especially in Masters in Finance. But as you see, all of these have actually moved very, very recently, I think it's a couple of days ago, even upwards in terms of these rankings. Second, we ranked number 7 in terms of English Proficiency Index. Fourthly, we have currently already 15% of foreign students in higher education, and this is growing. We see more and more European, but not only students wanting to come to Portugal due to its good universities, its great environment to study and also do some research. And so this is very, very important for the whole ecosystem that is developing talent. And finally, we have several programs that are promoting the upskilling of our talent and of our population. So overall, not only we already have competitive talent, but we keep on working very, very hard to keep this up, and we'll keep on working very, very hard to keep this up. And as you see, this obviously brings results in terms of global innovation. Portugal, in terms of proportion of population, has already 4 unicorns. So if you compare this to other much, much larger countries, you'll see that you won't find as many unicorns as you'll find in Portugal. I know they're extremely rare unicorns, but here in Portugal, apparently they show up more frequently, and that's not by chance. That really is the direct result of our talent. And as you can see, in terms of human capital and in overall innovation, or even in terms of scientific and technical articles, Portugal really performs well. Finally, which is obviously important, in terms of logistics and telecommunications, you will find that Portugal has an extensive and exhaustive infrastructure, highly competitive, fully ready for your business. You can actually connect your business anywhere in the country and you'll be ready for business from day one. And so I think you have all the settings to expand and develop competitively your operations out of Portugal. Let me just finish by saying that we also have, and we also foster some of this investment through attractive incentives, namely tax credits or even financial support to the establishment of what we call productive investment, but basically factories or engineering centers, or in R&D investment. Here we have an extensive set of supports that can help you out depending on the profile of investment or activity that you are developing. And finally, obviously, tax exemptions and grants for job creation. And with this combination, and above all, with the strong support of AICEP that can help you and guide you through all of these procedures as we work as a one-stop shop, you will be able to find the best solutions for your companies and for your investments. Let me just finish by referring, I think, something that everyone appreciates, but I'm sure that especially my Belgian friends will appreciate that very, very much. Portugal is one of the healthiest, actually considered the second healthiest place to live in the world. We're number 3 in terms of quality of life for expats, and as I mentioned already, we're number 4 in terms of overall peace and stability. So we have a great country to live in, a great country to invest in, with great and competitive conditions even for you to settle personally over here. So please do let us know of your interest and of your expansion plans. And as a one-stop shop agency, we are looking forward to work with you. Thank you very, very much for this opportunity. And I hope this has raised your interest. And I am sure that with Miguel's words, you will confirm how competitive we are and how well we've been doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation and for all the figures and the X-ray you have presented us. We will now have Miguel Farinha. He will present us the FDI Attractiveness Survey for Portugal. He is a UI partner and the strategy and transitions leader. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Monica, for your words, and thank you, Luís, for the kind introduction and challenge on how we believe Portugal can be an attractive country for foreign direct investment. I don't know if the presentation is already passing by. Thank you also, Ambassador, for the presence here and for the other guests. I don't know if the presentation is already on. Can we confirm it if it's, if you could put it?
The presentation is on already?
Okay, perfect. So, first of all, just to explain you very briefly what is the UI Attractiveness Survey. Basically, it's a study composed of, we try to put together two things. From one side, the perception of investment in Europe. From the other side, the real investments done. And so we can try to correlate both and see if it makes sense what we are saying from here. What I will present you today, I will cover basically the foreign direct investments today and tomorrow, the expectations of what happens on last year, FY20, and the expectation of investors for FY21, and then I will cover the understanding the foreign trends in the Portuguese market, which sectors, where should we go, and at the end, the key assets on the landscape for foreign direct investments on the Portuguese market. Going directly for the first point on the agenda, so about Portugal, as obviously Portugal suffered quite extensively from the pandemic, as all the other countries in the world, and this is the great news from this crisis was affected all of us. But the good thing about it, it didn't affect the perception of the investment in Portugal, of the investors which are looking to Portugal. And that's one very significant point for us. As you know, our GDP growth rate of FY 2020, we were down by 7.6 points, but our expectations very high for 21 and 22 with 4.8 and 5.6. Even in terms of exports growth, again, we had a huge decrease on last year, and with very high expectations of growth for the next 2 years. And in terms of the perception of the investments and the questions we have done to our clients, it shows again the confidence on the Portuguese economy going forward. The first point on that topic is for how long do we expect the COVID have an impact on the Portuguese economy. And we see that like 90% of the investors expect that impact to be lower than 3 years, and a significant amount of them even less than 1 year of that impact, which is great. And in terms of the interest to continue to invest in Portugal, we see that 58% of the investments expect to maintain or increase their investments in our country, which is also great news. From there, directly to the study in terms of the conclusions of the numbers, and that's one good news in Portugal, or probably the best one from the study, it is, even despite 2020 was a very complicated year for everybody, the number of foreign direct investments in Portugal kept a very high level. We just have a very small decrease compared to 2019, which was a record year in Portugal. So we have minus 3% of investment, and if we compare to all the other European countries, the difference is quite significant. And as you can see, we have in France and UK, in Spain, in Germany, all of them have very significant decreases on the number of investments compared to with Portugal, with the minus 3%. And on top of that, we've entered the top 10 of the investment destinations in Europe. And that's for us, it's also a great news. In terms of the locations or the countries of the origin of the investment that are looking for Portugal, I will recall that US keeps being the number one country of investment in Portugal, quite followed by France, Spain, UK, Germany and Belgium. In terms of the investments in Portugal and how we see the study, we have 37% of the investments are planning to establish or expand their operations in Portugal over the next year. And this compares with all the other years before the study, and I should remember that this study, it's done in Portugal for the last 7 or 8 years, at European level for the last 20 years, so the methodologies implied in the study are quite robust and quite stable over the time, and the numbers have increasing significantly this year with those 37%, and 50% of the investors considering Portugal attractiveness will improve in the next 3 years. So again, the confidence and the expectations of recovery of the Portuguese economy, it's quite robust among all the people that responded to our survey, and comparing that also with the investment that were done on the year, again, because that's quite an important factor on the presentation. In terms of the topics that led investors to go and to look at Portugal, and here I have to comment the topics mentioned by Luís and by the Minister of Foreign Affairs again, because those are quite spot on the topics that all the investors are looking to Portugal and valuing in Portugal. And before going specifically to the ones in Portugal, I will call your attention to the left part of the presentation on basically when we are asking foreign leaders where they want to invest, on what they are looking for on countries to invest, the key 3 topics are, number 1, stability of the political and regulatory regime. This is quite critical, obviously. Number 2, tied up with number 3, the reliability and coverage of the infrastructure network, roads and telecoms and energy. And number 4, the skills and availability of the workforce. And then if you look at this from the Portuguese perspective, so what investors are valuing in Portugal and how they are rating as the location for foreign direct investment in Portugal, the top 5 topics cover most of those things. First of all, and Luís mentioned it quite well, the quality of life in Portugal. We all know that we live here. How good is it to live in Portugal? Despite sometimes we should spend some time abroad so we can come back and see how even better it is to live in Portugal. But then the stability of the social climate, again, it's one fundamental topic in Portugal compared with other European investments. The telecom and the infrastructure network, again, 2 very key focus in Portugal for the investment here, and the local labor skills level. We all know that in Portugal we have excellent universities. The population that we are taking from those universities, it's fantastic workforce, so it's very skilled, very talented, all of them dominating a second language quite fluently. So all of those topics are key, and Portugal has been able to maintain that perception on top of the rank for all the investors looking to Portugal. Then we start looking at other topics that should be improved and where Portugal needs to improve. And we've mentioned there 3 topics, at least the ones that are highlighted red on the list. One of them, the availability of quality of office space. we need still to invest in this area. There is a need, at least on the big urban centers of Portugal, to have more office space of quality. There are investments going on, but there are still a huge demand for those office spaces. The other topic, the stability and transparency of the political, legal and regulatory environment. We've mentioned above that Portugal ranks very high in terms of the social climate and stability of the social climate. We need to improve on the recurrent changes we are doing on our legal and tax regimes. We have continuously changes and from one year to the other, which sometimes that it's something that the investors don't like. We need to know every time you are investing on a new location, one of the things that you clearly value is the stability of the regime. You know that this is the conditions that you will have during your investment time. And if we are changing those quite constantly, it's a factor that we should be working. And on the other topic, the innovation ecosystem. And on this specific topic, we believe, and we will see it ahead on the report, that what we need to do is communicate better that ecosystem. As Luis was mentioning, we have 4 unicorns in Portugal. We have a lot of startups in Portugal. We have done an amazing job on this area over the last 10 years, and I think we need to communicate it much better outside so that we can improve that perception. Then going to the sectors and what are the investors looking when they are looking to Portugal and the topic. First of all, you can see it on the left of the graph, the Fdi Project in Portugal by the main activities in FY19 and FY20. And this is the real numbers of the projects done in Portugal. So we have always had a very high demand for industrial projects, manufacturing, the automotive that we were seeing on before, the machineries, all of those topics. And we are seeing a shift from that for all the more intellectual digital technology part, the R&D, the shared services centers, all of those topics have increased a lot over the last couple of years in Portugal and are keeping that area. And when we've asked to the investors, what type of investment project does your company want to establish or expand in Portugal? Again, comparing 20, and the colors on there are not quite good, honestly, but if you look at the highest of them, R&D, research and development, it's clearly the #1 on this area, with 37% of the investors looking for having projects of research and development in Portugal. And then the other 26%, it keeps going manufacturing and sales and marketing investments. Again. Then if we are looking to the topic of the digital economy and how it will play an important role on the future of the foreign direct investment in Portugal, this is a clear topic for us. Out of the 154 projects done in Portugal, 37% of them are in the software and IT services sector. Just last year, in 2020, we had 50 projects on the software and IT services. I believe on the list that we presented before, most of them were exactly on these sectors. And what we are seeing, it's huge multinationals, huge companies, giants on their sectors that are bringing to Portugal their research and development centers. They are bringing to Portugal the high value creation for their businesses. And one of the things that Luis has shown on their slides, and I've liked it a lot, it's the topic on Bosch, and how Bosch, it's not done now on produced in Portugal, it's invented in Portugal. And we need really to capitalize that and go on that sense in Portugal. One of the questions, it was also, in your opinion, which main business sectors will drive Portugal growth in the coming years? And again, #1, digital economy, IT, telecoms, and media. This is clearly #1. Real estate obviously maintains very high on the list, and as well, clean tech and renewables. And Portugal has been able to also show us a huge strength on these topics, and investments on energy are quite significant in Portugal over the years. Finally, key assets, and speaking about 3 key assets on the Portuguese economy, and that are driven from the study and that we are taking it from the study. First of all, we need to communicate better all the technology-related factors that influence where business locate their operations. And clearly Portugal needs to do more on this topic. I think we are doing it. I think one of the conclusions, and you look at the first question that we've done, about does your company regularly receive information on Portugal attractiveness to foreign direct investments, the numbers have shown a slight decrease compared to prior year, and I think also this has to be done with all the pandemic and all the environment we live nowadays, because you participated much less events where we are promoting Portugal and bringing Portugal due to there are no such events nowadays, and clearly that's a point that we need to invest. But then when we spoke about the perception of the investments and where things should be worked, one of the important points, it's the last one on the sector, which is the overall talent in Portugal and the quality of those talents. This is one of the key factors that are highlighted. We have 33% of the respondents to the survey saying that Portugal is one of the most competitive countries in Europe to have in terms of talent availability and quality. The other topics that need clearly to be worked on those topics. It's the collaboration between the academies, the universities, and the companies. It is a clear topic that it has to be boosted on over the following years. The startup ecosystem needs to continue to invest on those and bring those to the attention. And the communication, again, of the innovation, of seeing Portugal as an innovation center and how we should bring that forward. And if we look also in terms of which are the trends that do we expect to accelerate most on the next 3 years following COVID, clearly digital customer access to services, this is one key topic, and this is where all the companies are looking for. And honestly, I spent most of my time advising foreign investors investing in Portugal mainly on M&A operations, on buying companies. And nowadays, the number of operations that we are doing with IT companies, with looking for technology in Portugal, it's really amazing what we are seeing. And we are working for US investors, for European investors, French ones, UK ones, German ones, looking for technology companies in Portugal. Again, also, on how important are the following technology-related factors in determining which countries you invest. And again, availability of workforce with technological skills. And again, we have that. Our universities are graduating more and more people with those skills. The rate of innovation, of digital adoption, it's again one key factor that investors are looking, and I think that Portugal rates quite high on these topics. And the intellectual property rights protection, this is one important point from an investor's perspective. Then if you pass to the other point, again on the key assets on this area, Portugal is still seen as a green country and a clean tech country. And this is also linked with being this part one of the key growth drivers for investments. When you look at how important are strong, sustainable clean tech policies in determining whether you invest in Portugal, and 56% of our respondents reply that yes, they are a clean topic, a very important topic on defining an investment strategy. And this is quite important with all the investments that Portugal has done on the renewable sector. Portugal remains to be one of the countries with more utilization of renewable energy. Investments are continuing to be done all over the country, and this is quite an important factor when you are looking at this. When you are also looking what are the main areas to reform to make Portugal a leader in environmental sustainability, the thing that the investors are telling us, it's access to cleaner energy sources, low carbon and non-fossil. This is one key topic for the investors. Promote environmental awareness and education, air, water, soil pollution reduction. So this is the topics that we need to improve, but this is also topics that we are quite high in terms of what we have done over the past couple of years in Portugal. And then the last topic, one very important focus for all the investors, it's the recovery of the social and economic recovery plan. And what Portugal is doing on this, I think here Portugal has a huge, it will have a huge impact from the resilience and recovery plan that was defined in Portugal. This will help also to bring again the growth to the economy that it's needed, and this is one of the main pillars that we are looking in Portugal. Again, if you look at the main pillars of the recovery and resilience plan, 3 topics are critical there. The resilience on the public sector, on the social response that we are giving, but then digital transition and the climate transition. And those 2 topics clearly linked with what investors are looking when they look into Portugal. One last point that I've mentioned quite shortly on the beginning of the discussion, but it's also important. It's the changes on the regulatory environment, and I'm here focusing specifically on the tax topics. It's really important that from a tax point of view, we have to reform and simplify the Portuguese tax topics. We have 3 topics that we are mentioning: creation of a council between the tax authorities and the taxpayers that will decrease the number of cases in court, because every time a case goes to court in Portugal, you know how long it takes to resolve those. Reduce the deadline for the Portuguese tax authority to respond to the technical queries. This is clearly again an important topic. And include continuous access to the tax credits for research and development that Luis has mentioned also that we are doing. So this is our presentation. Thank you for the opportunity. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for helping us understand trends and our key assets. And you have both laid the floor for many of the topics that we'll address today during today's conference. Now, it is time for the panel discussion with the Belgian investors in Portugal. We will try to understand why they chose the country and what the future lays ahead. Our 4 guests are Steven Brackenfeldt, CEO at Continental Europe and head of AICEP Portugal, Chantal Soyer, president of the Portuguese-Belgium-Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce, Inge Gerdens, CEO and founder of CV Warehouse, and Frederik Vandenberg, CFO at Skyline Communication. You must excuse me if I didn't pronounce your names correctly. Which one will make a short presentation of about 5 minutes, and then we will engage in a hopefully fruitful discussion. Steven Brackenfeldt is CEO at Continental Europe and head of AICEP Portugal, the 2nd biggest insurance company in the country. He built a long international career in the financial, banking and insurance sector. At the same time, he teaches in the university. The floor is yours for the next 5 minutes, please.
Well, thank you. I hope everybody can listen to me. And actually, I'm a big defender of Portugal, and I'm not even biased. So imagine if I were to be biased. And the proof of the pudding is in the fact that I have been listening, and independently, Luis asked me to participate. I put some points on why we are in Portugal, and actually, objectively, they coincide with what has been said. Now, Aegeas is here since 2005, so we have already a long history with our partnership with our good partner, Millennium ACP. And since then, you could say, what did you do? Well, we invested another 600 million in Portugal. We bought 3 additional companies. In the meantime, we launched 6 additional companies and brands. And we're expanding further. And if you ask our group, would you, if there was a merger, M&A activity, do further investments in Portugal, we would do so. So for the time being, we have about 1.2 billion invested in Portugal. We would increase it. And as of our assets, we have invested about over 15 billion into the Portuguese economy. But when I come to, I'm always surprised how come, and that's specifically for everybody of you who are listening, and who are not in Portugal, I'm always surprised how come not more Belgian companies are in Portugal. Because indeed, when I look to the fact what I wrote down, and it has been mentioned a couple of times, it's a very stable, consistent working environment and investment environment. And that's key if you want to invest into a country. The second one I put down, there is a huge thriving culture of innovation since a couple of years, and it goes into the social innovation. It goes into sustainability with the blue economy, the green economy, but it also, as it has been said, into all the startups of technology, of science, of everything which is related to this innovation platform. Thirdly, mentioned again, I put it down, extremely high skilled and educated people. We are very, very satisfied with the talent that we are hiring here in Portugal. They're incredible people. Everybody's fluent in English. Very good skills. And the universities, now that they are more having the companies into the university, are cooperating very, very well. Fourthly, what has not been mentioned very much is, due to its history, Portuguese people have a very open mind to the outside of the world. I can tell you as an anecdote, I lived 5 years in Mexico, and in Mexico, everybody told me, mi casa es tu casa, hombre, mi casa es tu casa. But I never saw a casa of a Mexican. Here in Portugal, people are really very open-minded. They welcome you, they invite you, there's circles, there's network, and that's not what I found in other countries where I was living. And it's very difficult for the people here on scene to say that, but as I lived in so many countries, and I'm very thorough, I honestly believe that Portugal has the nicest people of Europe. Generally, by DNA, by birth, wherever you travel in Portugal, people are nice and try to help you. And it's back then from the history, and that helps a lot when you are in business here. You're not, people are not looking down or they don't help you. No, they generally will help you. They're there to help you, and they will not do it with a second or a hidden agenda. And that is very favorable in everything. I mean, what's happening if you invest. What is mentioned with office space, I think things are moving. You saw it in the chat. I mean, we have Belgium real estate companies who are investing about 1 billion into the real estate. We ourselves in AGS, we're investing about 600 million in offices, new offices. So I think there is evolution in that sense. And that's my. Here I stop. I think I'm at my 5 minutes. I leave it to the next. So big defender.
Absolutely. I would have to thank you in the name of the Portuguese people, because your enthusiasm. It's fantastic. And I will now give the floor to Chantal Soyer presentation. She is the president of the Portuguese, Belgium, Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce, but she is also she has also another full-time job at BNP Paribas, where she is CEO of Group Strategic Sourcing Services. She has a vast management experience through CEO, COO, CFO positions, and of nearshore and offshore operations. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Monica. Yes, I'm also a strong defender of Portugal, and I can't beat maybe the enthusiasm rate of Stephen. However, I've been in Portugal since 2015, very actively involved, and for the Chamber, I took on the role of president since 2020. So from a Chamber perspective, to come back on what Stephen is saying, why don't we see more Belgians in Portugal, Belgian companies, Belgian investments? Actually, we discovered quite a lot of Belgians entrepreneurs over the past 2-3 years. We are very discreet as Belgian. We like to drive a project. We like to drive innovation. We like to drive sustainable matters, and that's what we see with our members in the chamber. So the chamber has a role of supporting this bilateral development from an economic perspective and also cultural. I won't speak about the football because this is too much of a sensitive topic for today and later on. So what we do in the chamber is we provide facilitation services to our prospect members that want to come to Portugal. We can bring them in front of experts to help them developing their business plan and then prepare their arrival in the country. At board level, we have recently introduced a sector approach, an economic sector approach. So we have dedicated board members that are professionals in an economic sector. You saw in the movie Nicolas Keutgen, and he's taking on, I would say, the networking and working together with members and prospect members in the area of innovation, digital, and industry. We also have board member, it was mentioned in the chat and also by Steven, we have 1 billion of investments as Belgian companies in real estate, professional real estate construction. So we have dedicated board members that are taking care of different sectors, putting at disposal their know-how and their networking. And then we have a regional presence, not only in Lisbon, but a lot of Belgians seek to go in other areas where there are other type of talent or other type of specialization. So we are also present in Porto, in Braga, and not only in Lisbon. And then a last point, it was also mentioned by Mr. Ambassador and by AICEP. We have a very good collaboration with the trade associations, be it AICEP, be it municipalities, be it some commercial associations, and can count also on the networking of the Belgian economic regions and the embassies, which is, if you put all the parties together, it should be a win-win for the Belgian investment projects wanting to come to Portugal. So maybe I gained some time of the 5 minutes I had.
Thank you very much for being so strict with your time. It's absolutely perfect. I will now give the floor to Inge Gerdens. She is the CEO and founder of CV Warehouse, a software company that helps others to recruit faster and more efficiently. Her list of customers includes Estée Lauder, Nespresso, McDonald's, Capgemini, Pinglus, Sonai, and many others. CV Warehouse has offices in Antwerp, San Francisco, and Lisbon since 2012. Let's hear from her.
Hi, good morning. So I'm Inge, and I'm indeed founder of CV Warehouse, a software for recruitment. I already had quite a lot of friends in Portugal before I started there, and when looking for an office in Southern Europe to also be able to support that market, these were the people who immediately helped me finding the right people. So the first thing that I found in Portugal is that people are very, very helpful, very enthusiastic, and very, very energetic to bring you there. So that's how I ended up in Portugal. And of course, there is the language, which is much easier than in other European countries. What I also very much like is that we kind of have a similar culture in the way that we always find solutions for things, not always very formal, but we solve things. It's a loyal country, loyal in the sense that people you come close to really become your friends much faster than even in Belgium. And so we're now there since 2013 with the team. We grew our customer base, we grew our team. We have moved offices all the time, almost twice a year, just because of the growth, but also because of apartments being built out of big buildings. So I'm happy Corona is coming to an end, because I used to spend about 1 week per month in Lisbon. And of course, in the past year, it was a lot less. But I'm coming back next week. And I'm so much looking forward. And for me as a company, it's also very, very interesting to offer this to my employees to travel a couple of times a year to Portugal. They all love it. And it's really a benefit which I offer to everybody working for the company. So I'm showing Portugal to a lot of people, entrepreneurs who ask me what it is like to be there. I am passing on my passion for Portugal to my employees, and also my kids often go there. That's my short story about me being in Portugal.
Thank you, Inge, for your kind words too. And the last presentation is the one from Frederick Vandenberg. He was appointed Chief Financial Officer of Skyline Communication in August 2011. Skyline Communication is the global leader in end-to-end multi-vendor network management and OSS solutions for the satellite, broadcast, IPTV, and HFC broadband industries. He is also a lecturer at VIV University of Applied Sciences. The floor is yours.
Yep, thank you. Thank you very much for having me here today in the panel. So that's correct. I'm Frederick, and Skyline Communications is a software company that delivers solutions for the telecom industry, and it's a very complex solution that we have, and that's important, I think. So, and we have been growing quite fast, and that was for us the first reason back in 2011, I think, that we first went to a job fair in Portugal, and there we hired some Portuguese profiles to work in Belgium. And that's something that's not been mentioned before, I think, but a lot of Portuguese people, they have their eyes abroad. They are looking to other countries. You see a lot of Portuguese young people, university graduates, etc., that they already have some experience abroad. But so we hired some people, some Portuguese people to come and work in Belgium, and that went very well. That went extremely well. We were very satisfied with these people. They had a very good education, very good cultural fit. The English skills were very good. So in 2014, we decided to open an office in Portugal, mainly because we didn't find enough profiles in Belgium. We have been growing quite fast, and we have hired more than 200 people in the last years. So we had a shortage of good, highly skilled employees. And that's the reason, the main reason. There are other reasons, but that's the main reason why we opened an office back in 2014, and that has been going very well. We've hired very competent people, and last year we opened the second office. The first office was in Lisbon. We opened the second office in Aveiro because of the good university that we have there. And I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I can only repeat what other people have said before me. But the level or the quality of the education is very good. So we are looking really for high skilled employees, engineers, telecom engineers, software developers, preferably masters, but also PhDs. And we have to say we have not been disappointed. We have done experiments in other countries. We have offices in other countries, but Portugal is the only country where we do R&D, research and development. And that's the only place where we were successful in having an R&D department. And that's because of the quality of the education that we have there. The English skills, it has been said before, but of course that's essential. Again, in other countries, we've had experiences that were not that good, but everyone, especially the young people in Portugal, they are very proficient in English. So that's a plus. And also, of course, the Portuguese language, which is used among the world in South America, etc. That comes also in handy for us because we have customers in more than 100 countries around the world. So that's also a very important one. And then you also have the culture of fit, which is very good with Belgium. It has been said before, and I will repeat it again. Somehow there seems to be some kind of a connection between Belgium and Portuguese people. We have Portuguese people here working in the HQ in Belgium. We have Belgian people working in Portugal, and that goes extremely well. It seems like we're on the same frequency, let's say. These people are smart people, they are ambitious, they are very well organized, they are friendly, they are helpful. I can only say that is effectively the case. So, and also, I think important to mention the digital mindset. It was in one of the presentations that they see a lot of growth in the coming years, and they have already seen that in the last years in Portugal. Portugal is really embracing that digital mindset, is investing a lot in these digital skills, and for a company like Skyline Communications, but I think for every industry, that's going to be like very vital, very important. We use on a daily basis new technologies like machine learning, artificial intelligence, etc. And we find these skills, these competencies in Portugal, so we can use them very well. So that's I think, in a nutshell, our story and how we ended up in Portugal, and we do not regret it, not in the least. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I'm glad that you do not regret your investment. Let's now begin our roundtable, and as I told you previously, please feel free to add on each other's answers. We'll start with you, Stephen. What do you think that would be the main issues in which the Portuguese authorities should focus now? You mentioned very positive aspects, of course, with all your enthusiasm, but what else should we focusing on so that we can attract even more foreign investors?
Well, I mean, I will answer as a big company, right? I'm not we are not a startup. We're not a small company. We're a big company. Where there's one thing where the government, or at least could help, is the unity of VAT group, which you have in nearly the rest of Europe. You don't have it in Portugal, so then you have a huge, complicated set of regulations and how to have VAT. I mean, we have so many companies in our group, and then some are in insurance, some are beyond insurance, and definitely if you go into the direction we're going in ecosystems and platforms, you start to have services from one or the other, while in other countries it's so easy with having unity of VAT. Here it's very, very complicated. Secondly, there is a progressive tax rate which I believe is going against the government. Instead of thinking they will have more receipts on tax, they get less, because every group is establishing more smaller companies, so everybody falls below the certain tax rate. And if you merge two companies together, you immediately shoot to a different tax rate. So everybody's starting, all big groups are starting to establish all smaller companies, and I believe that the government is even missing a lot of income to that. And these are for me the two on tax issues. Thirdly, there is not a lot of incentive for savings. The savings ratio, of course, have gone up in COVID, like it did in 2009 and 2010 with the financial crisis. But there's a huge issue on the savings ratio of the Portuguese population, which is normally, in normal situations, around 4% of GDP, which is far too low of the European average. But these would be the three, in a nutshell, I would mention.
Chantal, and what about the business that contact you directly in the Chamber of Commerce? What are the main difficulties that they feel when they want to invest in Portugal, and what do you tell them to help them?
There's a couple of things. What we get lately, a lot of questions is on the labor law. My own experience with the labor law in Portugal when arriving in 2015, and I recruited in 1 year time 200 people professionally. I was also a little bit surprised by the understanding of the labor law, which is pretty complex in Portugal compared to other countries. So we get a lot of questions because some people think that, or entrepreneurs think, okay, there is a lot of talent in Portugal, and it has been underlined many, many times, and I do agree with that. People tend to work in different countries. The Portuguese, as said by Friedrich, have their eyes on the abroad. So it's a nice career thing for them to work in Belgium, even if they are still in Portugal. And we get a lot of questions. Can they just recruit Portuguese and send to Belgium? And they work in Belgium, but they're still on the Portuguese payroll. So we have a lot of questions on this, which we need to transfer them to some specialized companies because, we need to explain. Other questions we have is related to investments locally. So we help facilitating with the municipalities. I do remember a startup in sustainability asking us to get the licenses to be able to take some plants out of the river, where we say you cannot just do that. We need to go through licensing and the municipality, and I think it's now 6 to 8 months. We work with the municipality, putting them in contact, and so on. So these are I would say, over the past 12 months, very concrete questions that we get. So the labor law, and then if they have an idea as an entrepreneur and it involves a local setup, how do we do that? To whom do we need to talk? And we usually, our first starting point is usually AICEP, and then we connect with the different parties throughout Portugal.
Thank you. And Inga, explain us, why did you decide to choose Portugal instead of any other location in South Europe?
First of all, people were very willing to help me to find people, but also set up the company, which is an administrative hurdle from abroad. And it's not straightforward and not easy for a startup. So you really need help. And there, people were very, very happy to help. And of course, being able to do everything in English, in very good English, is a big plus. So I kind of immediately chose to move further in Portugal and didn't look in depth at the other countries anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, and let me pick in perhaps. Yeah, I can also agree with what have been said here. I mean, I heard Inge saying, starting up a company, there's a lot of administration and a lot of red tape. I have personally incorporated companies in 4 different countries, and Portugal was, I have to be honest here, the most cumbersome one. But I also have to say immediately that was like 6-7 years ago. And I know there has been efforts since then to make it more easy and more straightforward. But that's not an easy one. Of course, if you're a big corporation and you use a consultancy company, then you don't have to worry too much about that. But if you want to do it yourself as a small company, you have to take into consideration that there is quite an amount of red tape. You have to be there locally. That is not to be underestimated. That's not easy. And I also have to agree with Chantal about the labor law or the social law. It's very strict. And you have plus and minus sides on it. I'm all in favor of good protection of employees, of course. That's very important to have good stability and security, especially in our line of business. We work with highly educated profiles, and these people, they need a good work-life balance. They need security. They need just more than a high paycheck. That's important for these people. But then again, the social laws are very strict in Belgium, but they are more strict even in Portugal. So I think that's also something that you have to take into consideration. It's not a deal breaker, but I think that they are a little bit too strict. If you ask me, of course, I'm an employer. That's like the typical answer that you might receive. But then again, I try to be even-handed here, in my opinion. And yeah, to end a contract in Portugal is not an easy thing, and you do need a lawyer to do that most of the time. So I think that's also an interesting piece of information for the people listening to the.
Sorry, let me just point you out that in the meantime, there was created a mechanism here in Portugal, which is called Empresa na Hora, which allows you to create the company in that exact moment. Maybe not in that exact moment, but it will facilitate much more that task. But for you, I would like to hear from you explaining to me why did you have a previous relation with Portugal? Skyline Communications had already some kind of a commercial relation with Portugal prior to the decision to invest here.
Yeah. So as I said before, we hired people from Portugal to work in Belgium before we actually incorporated, but we also had customers there. So for us, that was also an extra plus. PT, Portugal Telecom, for example, NOS at that time. There are some very nice, big, important telecom companies that use our solution. So that was for us another reason to go to Portugal. And of course, there's also the connection between Portugal and a lot of African countries. And also there we have customers, and that made that more easy to do business over there. So yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And Stephen, you are here for some time, and what kind of evolution did you felt in the country? Do you think it has become easier to do business here in Portugal? Or, for instance, the changes in the tax system, as you were mentioning, are getting worse instead of, of better?
No, I wouldn't say it's getting worse. What I have seen in evolution is the skill skill sets of the people. I believe that the whole educational system went from a papagayo, from a kind more monkey education. You get your 5 sentences, and at the exams you have to say the 5 sentences. If not, you fail. Universities go much more to cooperations with companies, with innovation with companies. They integrate. Actually, every year we have a number of students that come within our company for 6 months and work. And so you see a big change into the kind of skill sets of the people. They're much more entrepreneurial. They're much have an out of the box thinking. They think differently than before. Before it was very boxed thinking. This is moving away. And I think this is very good. You can also see it in the venture capitals, right? I mean, we invested also together with Gulbenkian in Maze, which is investment for social startups. You see all these initiatives being taken, and is only stimulating this aspect also of the skills of the people who want to develop that. And I see this is a big change. The question I have when I listened also to the fact that the country is and it's true, very advanced in digital development, based on also the fact what Frederick was saying of having a very strict social security, how will this allow big existing companies to make the switch towards the new kind of economy with these restrictions on the social security? And this is a big question mark. If there will not be any release of that social security, there will be a kind of delay on big corporations to follow that trend into the economy.
Let me just ask you, still on that point, if you think that the youngest generation is it for itself more flexible and maybe not so eager in getting stronger ties with the companies? Because there is also a very dynamic market, and so maybe they will change companies much faster than in the previous years.
Well, I mean, that's a fact. I mean, I only have to look to my own children. I mean, they change more rapidly than we do. But what we try then to have, I think we're one of the first companies also into Portugal that allow our own employees to create startups. Every year we invite our employees to come with ideas and to have startups. And if it's a good startup, we might even finance the startup. So you need to embed this innovation culture, this mindset within your whole processes, so that these young people, they say, wow, this is really great to work here. I mean, we are making huge steps ahead on everything which is sustainability, which is also an aspect that the younger generation is very dear to, and which they like. So on training, on academy, I mean, young people, if they cannot learn, they will move on. I see it, my children, if they stop learning, they move on. So you have to have a huge focus on how can you make them learn, continuously learn. And I think it's this mentality. We're one of the founders of Singularity University and the House of Beautiful Business in Portugal. So creating artificial intelligence is there to increase emotions in the business. If you do it for cost savings, you're on the wrong track. If it's to increase emotions, I think you're on the good track. This humankind, this doing beautiful business is something that the young people like. Combining machine learning is not there for efficiency. And so I think this is the mentality which makes that these young people, they don't move if they feel at home.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I think you put it very nicely about the artificial intelligence, etc., but also on the flexibility and dynamic I think, especially with this new digital economy, being dynamic and flexible will become very important. And that's something that Portugal can work on. The other side of the coin, I also have to emphasize that my experience is that Portuguese employees are very loyal, and that's a good thing. It can have its negative sides too, but that's a good thing. If I compare it to the other subsidiaries that we have, like for example in the United States or in Singapore, we have a lot more turnover there than in Portugal. Belgium and Portugal are both countries with very loyal employees that are very loyal to their employer, and the churn, the turnover is extremely low. Also in Portugal, but the downside of it is, of course, being less dynamic, being less flexible. You know, it's the creative destruction. You have new companies rising up with new technologies, and you have to give these new companies a chance, and they need employees, of course. But then again, it was mentioned in the presentations, Portugal does have some very exciting companies and more than 4 unicorns now. So that's a good thing. But you need to keep an eye indeed on the flexibility.
Thank you both. Chantal, and what about our plan, recovery and resilience plan? Do you have already investors seeking out opportunities or asking questions about the opportunities this new plan is going to open for them?
Yeah, exactly, Monica. That's the third type of question we get from companies and upcoming investors, is to know what kind of funding support would there be. First of all, we have the ones that would like to come to Portugal that ask, okay, if we do investments in infrastructure, in green, in anything else, where can we go? Can we apply for? And then we have existing established companies that kind of ask the same question. And they might be a little bit confused between Portugal 2020, Compete 2020, the Plano de Resiliência, and things like that. So I think collectively, now that everything is validated by the EU, I would say the new funding, it would be good that we do collectively efforts to make it very accessible and visible what kind of funding programs are available, and that go beyond technology. We speak quite a bit about technology and startups. There's sometimes a misunderstanding that startups are only technology companies, whereas I would like to stress that it's startups, yeah, it might have become from the tech area, but we have a lot of startups in circular economy. We have good examples from young Belgian entrepreneurs, and also in the fashion industry and so on. So all of this brings that, yes, indeed, we get these questions on funding, and I do believe in the next couple of weeks, we have to collectively make them very, very visible. And this will help some further investors, Belgian investors that might have, doubts or not knowing. It could give them a push.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to break my own rules and ask you all the same question, which is, and I will start with Inga, what's your plans for the nearest future? Do you intend to open more offices, to expand even further your activity?
For us, we are an online company, so we learned a lot from Corona. And we will not expand offices, but we'll definitely expand our teams, both in Belgium, Portugal, and the US. So that's the plan. We were already an online company, also working online between the teams. But thanks to the past year, we became super efficient and want to gain more efficiency and gain customers and gain more employees and move further, grow. I just want to share very quickly one big difference for me between Belgium and Portugal as a boss. I don't like the word, but it is. When I want to go out with my people, with my team in Belgium, I always have to ask them a couple of weeks, 4 or 5 weeks in advance if they are available. And then it's still one big question if they are. If I land in Portugal the same evening, my team can't wait for me to take them out. So for me, it's easier to work hard and play hard in Portugal than it is in Belgium. And I love that.
Thank you. That's a very fine picture. But do you have a number for that expansion, that team expansion? Do you have an idea how many people would you like to hire?
I think we will in the next year, we'll go and hire 3 to 4 people in Lisbon to expand our digitalization. Yes.
Great. And Frederick, for you, the same question. What are your plans for the nearest future?
Yeah, we have been investing for the last 6-7 years in Portugal, and that will remain the same for the coming years. Also this year, we plan to hire at least 10 people, but probably more if possible. And as I told you, we recently opened the office last year in Aveiro. We haven't been able to go full steam ahead because of the Corona crisis, but we plan to make that a full-fledged office. We've hired there now 3 people, and 2 people from the Lisbon office relocated to that office. So we hope that we can hire more people there. We are in close contact there with the university, so that should not be much of a problem. And the same with as Inge, it's been a special year with everyone working remotely. That is still the case in the Lisbon office. Everyone is working remotely, but then again, that's also a good thing. We like this kind of flexibility, and we already had this work from home policy, so that will make it also easier, I think, to attract more people, because it's not always easy to attract people from all over Portugal to travel to one of the big cities. So I think that might open some extra opportunities to hire more people with this new work from home policies.
Thank you very much. And Stephen, in the beginning you told us about you are always paying attention to new business opportunities. Is there anyone in particular that you would like to share with us?
If you have candidates, you can all call me. I will put my number in the chat. So anyone who has an opportunity, please call me. But for the rest, we are developing. I mean, we are planning on building 50 nursing homes. We're expanding with 30 clinics into Portugal. We have a plumbing company. We are expanding with a lot of different areas, which over the next coming years will be a kind of, I would guess, about 1,000 additional employees. We launched 2 ecosystems, new brands, and we just continue like that because we feel it's appropriate. It's a very good base, and it's successful, and people are very open to it. So we'll continue in that sense. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
But again,
yes, please.
if you have a candidate, call me. I mean, no problem.
I usually write about the candidates. That's what I do in life. And to at last, Chantal, maybe not from the Chamber of Commerce, but maybe from BNP Paribas, you would like to share us any near future plans?
Well, what I can share is that we are today almost 8,500 people in Portugal, which clearly shows its investment over the past years. When I arrived in 2015, we were about 1,500, 1,700. So this shows over the past 5 years our commitment to the markets, to the talents. I won't give my number, but I can give it like Steven is saying. And we continue to invest in dedicated spaces through the bank here in Portugal, and essentially into our shared service offering, as the biggest part of our activity here is in the shared services space. And we opened up also 2 years ago, before the pandemic, a new building in Porto. So we tried to also to have developing the presence there. And we will have to see how this integrates with the new post-pandemic new working schedule from home, not from home, how much time in the building, and all of these things. But there's a clear commitment to go further on this market for all the good reasons that have been mentioned by all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much to you all. Unfortunately, our time has come to an end, but it was a real pleasure to debate with you and to feel how enthusiastic you are about Portugal. I will now move to our second panel discussion. Joaquim Cunha, Miguel Castro Neto, and Nuno Cavaco will talk about the sectors that present opportunities to invest in Portugal. Once again, each one will make a short presentation of about 5 minutes, and after we will have a dynamic roundtable. I will start with Joaquim Cunha. He is an executive director at Health Cluster Portugal, but a significant part of his professional career was dedicated to Casos, a consultancy company that he founded in 1983 and has been its CEO since. Let's hear from him, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Special thank to the organizers. A salute to the fellows that are around the table, Madame l'Ambassadeur de la Belgique. As you mentioned, I'm coming from Health Cluster Portugal. Health Cluster Portugal brings together about 190 entities from the national health value chain, comprising universities, hospitals, public, private, and from the social area, and of course companies, pharma, medtech, ICT, for health, among others. And in Health Cluster Portugal, we like to look health as a whole, as an ecosystem. And the last events related with COVID-19 are, in my opinion, a clear evidence of that vision. And looking as health as a whole, as an ecosystem, we think that our major assets in the Portuguese case are, first, the entire health ecosystem, because it is a balanced, competitive and growing one, supported in an oiled value chain, organized in the national cluster, and with a focus in, I would say, five big trends that are tech-enabled healthcare, value-based healthcare, patient 2.0, active aging, and open innovation. The second assets are, and it has been mentioned by the general of the interventions, are people, our professionals, where I will point out the attractiveness of the ratio cost performance of the health professionals, but especially the extraordinary, well-qualified and motivated young generation. We have a big generation that will give results in the next years for sure. The third asset, I would say, is the national health system that, as you probably know, that ranks quite well in some of the global reference indexes. The fourth, our companies that are internationally recognized high-quality suppliers of healthcare products and services, but mainly by the high flexibility to fulfill the client demands. And last, but of course not the least, I think we could say that we have a vibrant and innovative research and development ecosystem, characterized by the presence of world-class institutions and scientists. We could say that we have a coherent, dynamic, state-of-the-art and international-oriented health ecosystem. But as you all know, health is the star of the moment. I think that never before we had a moment like this, a tremendous opportunity, because the world realized that health is not only the response and what a response is being possible to give in such a short time for the big hurdle that we have to face, the monster, but it is also one of the key areas for the recovery from after COVID. And when we think on this reality, I think there are two important keywords Collaboration, 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 cooperation, cooperation, cooperation. In-house, intensifying the links, the projects, the working together between academia, hospitals, and industry, and outwards, thinking even more global, with a special focus on Europe, of course. We definitely have to set a real European Health Union on a bottom-up approach. The creation of the EHDS, European Health Data Space, is an important and relevant step, or could be an important and relevant step. Health Cluster Portugal has been involved in the last 2 years deeply with partners for the north of Europe in the setting up of this EHDS. It's a step that we have to go. And Belgium could be a good partner in this area. We in Health Cluster, we designed very recently a national health development plan with a large consensus among the health tribe, the science, hospitals, and industry. And this plan stands on 6 key or core areas. On the base, we are talking about the knowledge valorization and the clinical trials. On the top, innovative medicines and smart health. On the middle, if you allow me, we could call the bread and butter, the essential medicines and the medical devices. It is an ambitious roadmap for the recovery where the foreign direct investment is more than welcome. Again, Belgium is a potential and a very interesting partner. So, on top of a coherent, dynamic ecosystem, I think, and I have to stress and underline this, we have the will and the motivation to be the right partners for doing business in health. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I will now give the floor to Miguel Castro Neto. He is Deputy Director at Nova Information Management School and Urban Analytics Lab Coordinator. He was former Secretary of State for Regional Planning and Nature Conservation. He also researches on business intelligence and smart cities. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Bom dia. A special word for Madame Ambassadrice of Belgium and to everyone that is following this conference. I have to say that I'm really proud of what I heard in the previous panel, so it's always good to know that the Belgian investment sector looks at Portugal as such an inspiring environment to invest and to join forces with us in the building of a different future. Regarding smart cities, and I think that we are all aware of the growing importance that we can find in this special area. We know that there is a global trend towards urbanization. It's in city where we face the biggest challenges, not only in service and infrastructures planning and management, but also to address the climate emergency and to cope with the sustainability issues. And having said that, cities are also a space for culture, for innovation, for wealth creation. And so this attractiveness that smart, sustainable cities are gaining is a global trend, and we see that also happening in Portugal. This has gained also more traction in the context of COVID, since with COVID we saw that the local authorities were in the first line of the battle that we are fighting, and the local authorities that were more mature in this context of smart cities, of being able to have a more data-driven planning and management of the urban spaces, were able to plan and to react or even to proact better in the context of the pandemic. How does this relate with what brings us together here? This is an opportunity for investment at a global scale, but also in Portugal. We see in Portugal a very dynamic movement toward this transformation of cities and villages, and we can think that we have three main clusters in Portugal. We have one cluster which still has a significant number of municipalities where they are working in the digital transformation of the organization. So they are still making investments in how to promote the digital transformation of the way they work, the way they interact with the citizens and with the companies. We have a second cluster where we can find today the biggest number of municipalities, which are municipalities that are looking on how to address this challenge of smart cities in a vertical approach. So we see a very relevant number of municipalities where they are making investments in smart solutions, smart parking, smart waste management, smart lighting, like the example of Schroeder Hyperion that is already in Portugal. And this vertical approach is really interesting because it provides not only very interesting use cases, but also demonstrates that these investments in smart initiatives, it's just not something that is a buzzword or the sexy political activity, but it is translated in real results, in efficient, more efficient processes, and a real impact in the climate emergency that we face, and that will release resources for other opportunities for investment. And finally, we have a smaller group of municipalities which already exist also in Portugal that look at this as a city as a platform. So they have gone through the process of digital transformation, then the vertical investments, and now they are trying to join everything together. And just as this was referred for the health cluster, the idea of creating at the city level a data space where we can bring together the data from the different areas of the city metabolism creates an opportunity to in fact change the paradigm of city planning and management, because everything is related with everything. And so when there is an intervention on the public space, we should react and change the public lighting, the public transport, the public hygiene services. So this is what is happening, and this creates an opportunity also to bring the digital transformation to a next level of maturity, taking advantage, for instance, of artificial intelligence, as was referred here, not only to provide descriptive analytics, but also prescriptive and predictive analytics. Having said that, and trying to give an idea of what is happening in Portugal, this smart cities ecosystem is becoming stronger and stronger. And nowadays it works closely with industry and academia, and the Portuguese National Association of Municipalities that brings together the 308 municipalities has created a special section on smart cities. And this is the newest and already the biggest section in the national associations of municipalities. And altogether with this, we have another aspect that could be relevant if we are thinking about investing in Portugal, which is the scaling up of this trend using a new administrative figure that was created in Portugal a few years ago, which are the intermunicipal communities and the metropolitan areas. This reduces the number of stakeholders because now we are speaking about 23 intermunicipal communities and 2 metropolitan areas. They bring together the geographical involved municipalities and give us an opportunity of thinking of bigger projects and creating economy of scales, and also addressing the necessary, shall we say, foundations for this to happen. How are we going to manage connectivity? How we are going to manage the skills necessary to address this challenge? And so my final remark would be, I think this is a very interesting landscape for investing in Portugal. The Portuguese cities and villages can be real living labs in what concerns projects for R&D in the context of smart cities. And we have, of course, something that is already mentioned here. Portugal is an early adopter of technology, and we see in Portugal very interesting small projects that suddenly scale up and they move on into a national and even international scale. So I think this is an area that deserves all the attention that investors can play to Portugal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the roadmap of investments that are being made that you pointed out to us. And now, at last but not least, we have Nuno Cavaco. He is the coordinator at Portugal Digital with more than 25 years of experience as management consultant and business developer. He is also a university professor and researcher on sustainable competitiveness. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Monica. Good morning. Good morning to all the present. Good morning also the Ambassador of Belgium, Geneviève Renaud, and also Secretary of State for Internationalization, Eurico Brilhante Dias, all the participants. It's a real pleasure to be here and to discuss and debate and reflect about this panel and concrete about the opportunities that Portugal can give to foreign countries, in specific to Belgium. In behalf of Portugal Digital and myself, we really appreciate the invitation of AICEP, Portugal Global, for being here. Well, my intervention is about digital innovation hubs. It's really a structural infrastructure that the European Commission has defined as one of the measures that increase or be able to increase the capacity of SMEs and the public entities to adopt digital technologies. But before that, I would like to also to share with you the current situation. Some years ago, 2 years ago, all of our companies and the public sector were aware that digital transformation would be something that we should implement, something that should be a solution to improve competitiveness. However, the feeling was, okay, I will do it next year or in a couple of years ago. What we have sure about the COVID pandemic is that, in fact, the digital transition is no longer a vision of the future. It's the present, and it is in our lives, and everything is changed, and a lot of companies were able to introduce that kind of solutions and to face the challenge that this pandemic made to them and to their businesses. In fact, we have a lot of examples of success, and the companies and the public entities already recognize that it is the only way that we have to develop our business and to grow. So, giving this statement, our capacity to move ahead and to transform and to be a more digital society and a more digital economy needs also to have a support on how the companies can adopt this kind of technologies and this kind of solutions. That's why the European Commission developed the Europe Digital Program that, beside the measures to develop digital skills and to finance digital projects, also defined the digital innovation hubs as a structural pillar to do so. And with this alignment with this European strategy, Portugal also, and all the member states, adopt this kind of solution. And B, in Portugal, are also developing the national process of recognition of these digital innovation hubs that should have a network here in Portugal, but also the idea is also to be part of a network of digital innovation hubs through Europe. What are these kind of digital innovation hubs? They are infrastructures, they are one-stop shops to help and support the digital transformation of SMEs and of public services and public entities. And how come? Well, they have four specific services to promote. One of them is to share knowledge and decrease the fear of adapting new solutions, because they are always have the sentiment, well, this technology is not suitable to my business, what are the risks of doing these investments, and so on. So the first dimension of services is regarding what we call test before invest. So in this kind of facilities, companies, SMEs, and public entities have the possibility to experiment, to test new technologies, and see how they can benefit their own businesses, and therefore reduce the risk of wrong investments and to increase their capacity to move ahead. The other dimension is regarding the digital training. So this kind of facilities also support companies to be trained on digital matters, to digital technologies, to digital knowledge, and also to promote scalability of knowledge in the society, because we also try to find out how this kind of solutions could also promote the digital transformation of the value chain of these companies. For the third dimension of services is regarding the support to get finance and funds for do this kind of investments. So there's a lot of ways to get this kind of financial support, and this infrastructure can also be a part of helping companies and SMEs to identify this kind of solutions to implement their digital transformation plan. The fourth one is to also promote networking, not just networking regarding what are the relationships in the national point of view, but also in this European network. So companies can interact and develop their business in the partnership with other companies, and also to do kind of investments and researching on innovation through international partners also. So here it's very important, something that we already discussed here regarding the open innovation and open data, because if you want to accelerate innovation, we need to have information, and open data is very important to do so. And in case of Portugal, I would like to add that these digital innovation hubs, beside these four services that we already mentioned, they also will have services of incubators to develop the entrepreneurship and to promote the startups development here in Portugal also. It's a reinforcement of our entrepreneur ecosystems. And I would like to just to underline what Stephen Brackenfeldt said regarding the reduction of the academic gap, the gap between academia and the companies. It's very important to have this perspective, because our ecosystem, our entrepreneurial ecosystem, is actually very dynamic. And we have around 2,500 startups. We have 5 unicorns, so it's really rich. Regarding also the digital innovation hubs, just to finalize, in the Portuguese process, we defined that they would have sectorial focus, so we will have around 15, 16 digital innovation hubs focused on specific sectors. economic sectors, and they will also have a perspective to cover the region, all the regions of Portugal, and they also will have a very important focus on technology, because the technologies that were priority are artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and high-performance computing. So these are the aims of the digital innovation hubs, and we are expecting that these are infrastructures that are able to promote foreign investments, because they are structures to develop the economy and also to develop our own companies, but also the companies that would like to be installed here in Portugal.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I will have now time for one quick question to each one of you. Joaquim Cunha, do you think that the trend to reshore and nearshore operations to avoid the severe supply chain disruption will present itself like an opportunity to Portugal?
Yeah, it's a nice question. Of course, you are thinking on health. Yes, for sure. And that's one of the aims of the health development plan that I mentioned before. We think that the world will be quite different after COVID-19. And in what relates to health, of course, will be different. I hope, because I hope that we the Europeans have learned some lessons from this, and in the near future, perhaps we can have what we will call a recovery plan that will be based on the reindustrialization of some of the areas from health, not only from pharma, of medical devices, but of course the areas of digital and data will be a tremendous role. I think, pardon me to be somehow a futurist, that in 10 years' time, health will be completely different from it is now. It will be, of course, more digital. I hope it will be smarter, will be more efficient, and of course will give more accessibility for our fellow citizens. And that's the big aim. And to do this, we have to rethink the value, the innovation, the distribution chains, and I think the next years will be a tremendous opportunity to do this.
And talking about opportunities, Miguel Castro Neto, do you think that our PRR it's going to be the opportunity to make the difference in digital terms?
I really think so. I think we are in a moment of opportunity, and we should work collaboratively, namely with taking advantage of data and the open innovation and co-creation to new solutions. And in the context of smart cities, I see here a huge opportunity regarding operations efficiency. So that's an opportunity, but also in the infrastructures investments that we will be doing in the context of more sustainable and smarter cities. So energy efficiency, water use, waste management, well-being and health, security, all of these dimensions of cities should be receiving investments in the near future, because at the end of the day, if we want to provide quality of life to the citizens, to the people that live, work or visit a city, and at the same time address the necessary transition from linear economy to circular economy, we have now a window of opportunity, and I think that we have the instruments. And now, as we say that we need smarter cities, we need also smarter roadmaps and plans, and we have the means to do it, so let's join forces and do it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Nuno Cavaco, I know we are talking to possible foreign investors, but would you think that our SMEs would have the ability also to go on board with this digitalization, and if the Digital Innovation Hub can help them also to go bigger and scale up?
Thank you, Monique. Yes, we believe so. Actually, we have good examples of success of SMEs that already introduce technical solutions and digital solutions to face this pandemic and also to improve their competitive advantage. We are talking about e-commerce, we are talking about integration of supply chains, we are talking about IoT, we are talking about a lot of solutions that already have been set and also been implemented. So I think that the Digital Innovation Hubs will also be an accelerator of this kind of solutions, and will be also, and it will have an effect on the culture of the leaders of these companies, of SMEs, because they will be a helpful tool to them to understand that it's possible to be even more ahead. So when we are sharing with them what kind of solutions can be applied and what kind of solutions should be developed and can be developed even more and be able and be a way of innovating also with other partners and other players on their sector or even other sectors to develop new solutions, they will also be more stimulated to do so. One thing that I would like to also to share is that the Digital Innovation Hubs are an opportunity to foreign companies to invest in Portugal, but we also have another initiatives regarding the National Plan for Digital Transition, which are the free zones for technology. There are free zones to develop and to test new and disruptive technologies, digital technologies that will have smaller cycles of innovation, because all the legislation needed to do that test will be simplified. So it's a way, and it's a huge opportunity to other companies to do testing here and to apply into, if they integrate this kind of initiatives with the Digital Innovation Hubs and other infrastructure that we have regarding research and innovation, I think that it will become a very speeding up solution to everyone. Just let me also say that we also have an e-residency project. We'll also accelerate and facilitate the relationship with foreigner citizens and companies to be resident in Portugal in a virtual way, but also to do business in a virtual way. So these are solutions that, combined with other measures that we are implementing in the action plan, will be differentiators to our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all of you and for the tips that you let us know, and for the audience. And our time is totally running out. So for the closing remarks, I'll give the floor to Geneviève Renaud, the Ambassador of Belgium to Portugal since October 2018. Please.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary of State, dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank the organizers for such a useful event to promote economic bilateral relationship between Belgium and Portugal. This seminar is very substantial, frank, instructive, and I'm convinced very helpful for future investment in Portugal. It is important to assess the state of play of our economic cooperation. It is also useful to put our bilateral relations into perspective. Relations between Belgium and Portugal go back to centuries, as already mentioned by my friend Rui Terreno in Brussels, and still produce tangible results in different agricultural and industrial sectors, as well as in services, like tourism, insurances, or real estate. Healthcare is also subject to rapid evolution, as mentioned by Mr. Cunha. Belgium is notably an important producer of vaccines, and many business partnerships exist, but we could do much more. Of course, the pandemic has a tremendous impact on our economies and on the lives of our citizens. Our GDPs have recorded a significant decline in 2020, as well as our trade relationships. Last year, the Belgian exports to Portugal have decreased by 15.9%, and the Portuguese imports to Belgium by 10.6%. But the good news is that the numbers for the first quarter in 2021 are positive again, compared with the first quarter of last year, with a rebound in our exports to Portugal of 3.5%, as well as of 26.9% for the Portuguese imports to Belgium. And as we have seen in different presentations, the same evolution is confirmed for foreign investment in Portugal. But as you know, economic relationships are not just a question of numbers. From a qualitative point of view, companies have also to respond to new challenges, and I'll focus on three of them. First of all, it's crucial to make sure no one is left behind. Social entrepreneurship has become fully integrated in our economies, and I'm particularly glad that social entrepreneurs from our two countries are liaising together, as recently demonstrated by joint venture between Belgian startup and Portuguese companies, or by the active policy of AGS, as already explained, and promoting several social and cultural projects in Portugal under the leadership of its CEO in Portugal, Mr. Steven Brackenfeldt. We also have to respond to the crying need of investment in our digital transitions, made even more urgent with the confinements required to fight against the contaminations of COVID-19, but also for the future, for example, with the potential growth of virtual meetings. 18% of the Portuguese population has never had access to internet, which is twice the European average. So many projects could be implemented to accelerate this transition, as mentioned by Mr. Cavaco, and including, of course, for the development of smart cities, presented by Mr. Castro Neto. And in this regard, the support of the European Fund, Next Generation EU, is very important. Last but not least, it's also important to ensure a sustainable development and to fight against climate change. It involves changing the way we produce and consume. It involves also, for the enterprises, promoting circular economy and reducing their carbon emissions. More than ever, it's urgent to act for a sustainable and inclusive development. The Green Deal and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030 are there to help us to implement it in our daily lives. And I'm also very glad that these priorities are promoted by the Portuguese, Belgian, Luxembourg Chamber of Commerce and her president, Mrs. Chantal Soyer. I would like to make a pledge to keep in mind our ethical and social standards throughout the projects we aim to develop together, and it will reinforce the stability of our countries and will provide a convincing response to populist rhetoric. Portugal and Belgium have a common belief in the fundamental values of freedom, democracy, human rights, and prosperity for all. So let's continue to promote these values in all our actions and socio-economic projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador, for your words. And now, to close today's conference, we have the Secretary of State for Internationalization, Eurico Brilhante Dias. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Monica. Yes, it is not an easy word to say in English, internationalization.
It's awful.
Quite hard, it's awful, I know. Madame Ambassador, c'est un plaisir d'être avec vous ici. You are, for us, a great partner in order to develop our our economic and trade cooperation between our two countries. And thank you for your words. And in order to close this seminar, firstly, of course, thank you, Monica. Thank you, AICEP, our trade and investment agency. Thank you, dear Manuel, for the work. And of course, thank you all for being here in order to address your perspectives, in order to give us some insights about how can we improve our economic cooperation with our friends from Belgium. Secondly, of course, Belgium is for us an important, and I need to stress it, Belgium is for us an important trade partner, an investment partner. Belgium is among our 10 most important export markets. Belgium is a country with many companies investing in our country, and we had some of them talking with us and talking with us during this morning. And thirdly, I really want to stress also Portugal. We have more or less 2,500 companies exporting to Belgium. It's an important number. I'm talking only about goods, and it's an important number, it's an important figure when we think that Portugal, we have more or less between 21 and 22,000 exporters. 2,500, it's more than 10% of our exporters are exporting to Belgium and are fulfilling demand in Belgium, and that is quite important. But more than that, as it was said before by our ambassador, Portugal and Belgium, we have the same, more or less the same ground, the same values, the same democratic approach. We are truly European believers. We are two countries that are members of the European Union. We are two countries like-minded in many, many different issues. And as I usually say, it's always easier to trade and to promote investment with countries with more or less the same approach to market economies, with a lot of SMEs. Belgium, they have also a lot of SMEs, and Portugal is a country where SMEs are, of course, more than 98% of our companies. Yes, we have many issues together in the political field, in the political side, but also economic, in the field of economic trade, and in another important aspect, in people-to-people and culturally wise aspects, we have many, many things in common. But we have also in common the other aspect, the issue that is quite important. We have a strong relationship historically, but of course economic, political, of course, firstly, with Africa and with different countries in Africa, and our friends from Belgium also. We have many companies investing and trading in Africa in different countries. It's not only in Portuguese-speaking countries, I need to stress it. Usually we think that Portuguese companies are in Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde. Yes, they are, of course, in those markets. They know quite well those markets. Nevertheless, they are also in Senegal, Ivory Coast, Congo. We have Portuguese companies in Rwanda, Uganda, Ethiopia, and so on. And of course, in Maghreb and Morocco, Algeria, and so on. We have many Portuguese companies in different African markets, developing infrastructures, developing services, selling medicines, for instance, a lot of them selling medicines. And they are also able to give an important contribution in order to enhance digital transformation in Africa, and of course to promote the fight against climate change also in Africa. Of course, I know our Minister of Foreign Affairs, I know during his speech during this morning, he highlighted also the importance of Latin America, and now we have so many companies in Latin America, and now Portugal can be an interesting platform to develop business in Latin America. But of course, Africa, and they said it also, I know, in Africa we have so many interests in common. Of course, in many cases, Portuguese and Belgian companies, they are competitors and they are competing from the same projects. Nevertheless, we need also to stress it. Portuguese and Belgian companies, they have also an opportunity to develop partnerships, to develop cooperation in order to have Portuguese and Belgium SMEs competing in different areas. I was talking about digital transformation, fighting against climate change, but I need to stress it also, and someone has mentioned that before, water, sanitation, waste management are areas where we have interesting skills, capabilities. We have good companies in those sectors, in those industries, and we really need to have a common ground with different partners, and of course with our friends from Belgium, they can be one of them, in order to develop those kind of business, in order to add value in many different African markets. And we share, of course, with Belgium this perspective. We fully understand that the development of our neighbor continent, Africa, is crucial also for our development. Not only because we are doing business in Africa, the topic is not only that. The main issue is we need to have an African continent where people really have opportunities. And to have opportunities, they need investment, they need to invest in critical areas. And in order to invest in those critical areas, we have not only cooperation developed by Portugal, by Belgium, cooperation developed by, for instance, European Union, but we really need to have business, we need to have cooperation with those countries, and I suppose it's our will, it's our political will. Of course, we have the opportunity to develop this common road with Belgium in order to promote more partnerships in different African markets. Saying that, of course, we are living a special moment, and I really want to highlight this aspect too. We are living a quite critical moment. We are fighting against this pandemic. Nevertheless, we are preparing the future. And we are closing the Portuguese presidency of European Union Council. Our main task was to prepare the resilient and the recovery and resilient plans in order to put them in place. The Portuguese plan was approved last week, as we know. Now we will have the Council in order to formally approve, but of course we had here Mrs. von der Leyen approving somehow our RRP. With those three different pillars, in order to be more resilient, in order to promote those twin transitions, green and digital, we are, of course, trying to recovery, but at the same time, and the word resilient is an important word. It means Europe really wants to be more resilient. And why now? Well, because we are facing this pandemic, and it was obvious that we were not prepared to face the pandemic. And in many different industries, it was obvious that we, as Europeans, Europe, not only Portugal, but the 27 member states, we were not prepared, and our industries were not prepared to deliver critical goods in order to give a proper answer to this pandemic. Of course, I have with me Joaquim Cunha from the health cluster. Of course, when we look to him, of course, with Joaquim Cunha and to our health industry, of course, we are thinking about ventilators, masks, and so on. And it was obvious that we were not prepared to face the pandemic, and we were not prepared to manufacture, to develop. Well, to develop somehow, yes, we were, but to produce, we were not prepared, and to deliver, we were not prepared to deliver those goods. And of course, we need to have our own capacity to in some moments, in some critical events, we need to be prepared to deliver those goods. But, of course, we are talking about healthcare, medicines, pharmaceutical products, but we can also think the same about critical goods in order to promote digital transformation. Should we or should we not prepare our industries to deliver those goods? Yes, we need to be prepared to deliver some of those critical goods. And in order to fight the climate change, of course, we are in front. We are in front of that fight. European Union and Portugal, as you know, is a country really committed with that fight. But of course, we need to develop our own capabilities. We have the skills, but we need to promote, and I'm sure that is an area where we can promote more cooperation also with our friends from Belgium. Saying that, once again, we have many, many opportunities that are rising, taking into account the resilient and recovery plans. And we need to give to our companies, to our businessmen and businesswomen, the opportunity to look to our RRPs. It means, yes, I really want to have companies from Belgium looking to our plan and finding there opportunities to invest in our country and to sell products in our country. But at the same time, yes, we also have an opportunity to look to the Belgian plan and to look to that plan and to understand how can we add value to that plan, how Portuguese companies can add value to the Belgian plan, and of course, we really want to invest in Belgium and to, of course, to sell our goods and our services, of course, in Belgium. So we are living a quite important moment, critical moment. We are still fighting against this pandemic. The vaccination process, as you know, is going quite well in Europe right now. We need to accelerate that process, but we are preparing a better future. My last words and my last comment is, you, of course, cannot, of course, I'm going to say it in a different way. Yes, we really want to be more resilient, and yes, we need to develop our own capabilities to produce some goods and services. But this doesn't mean that Europe should be closed to other regions and to other countries in the world. Our FTA network, our free trade agreements network, is critical and quite important. And I said before, Africa plays an important role in our future, not only to do business, as I said, but Latin America and Mercosur countries also. United States plays a critical role in our future in many different fields, not only in the economic field. The Pacific region, the Indo-Pacific region, is critical to the future. That's why Portugal, as presidency of the Council, was so focused in order to open the FTA and investment agreement discussions with India. And it was possible during our presidency. We need to remain open to trade with other regions, even if we need to take care of our economy in order to be more resilient facing so critical events like this one of COVID-19. And thank you, dear Ambassador, and thank you, Monica. Thank you all.
Thank you very much for your words. And on behalf of the organization and myself, I would like to thank you as well as all the contributors, all the speakers, and all the audience. I hope you have enjoyed today's conference. It was a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.